Say good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Let me just say I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and it is indeed an honor for me to again be the honorary host of our workshop this morning, Money, Wealth, and Disparities. But more importantly, it's about keeping it real. You're in for a treat today because we have 6 panelists up here, a moderator and 5 panelists who are going to keep it real for you. We're going to talk about how it starts, how it ends, and more importantly, how you can get there. So today, as we talk about keeping it real, when it comes to your money, when it comes to your wealth, when it comes to your retirement or your family's future, or let's start talking about and thinking about, as African Americans and minorities and others, our legacy. And so often we don't think about our legacy. In fact, by the end of today's forum, I want everybody in this room to be a part of my Keeping It Real crew. So I'm gonna swear you in, make you ambassadors, and make you a part of our crew. But before we begin, I would like to thank our moderator, the nationally renowned scholar and a very dear friend, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. And let me just say, he has been with us from the very beginning. You don't find many individuals of his national stature that takes time to come and be at a program like this. But you know why he does it? Because he understands keeping it real, and he's about the people. Now, when I was growing up, someone said if you told someone a secret, then they wouldn't keep it. They'd just pass it on and pass it on. And so I'm going to ask you to keep a secret. And I don't want you to break the tradition. Now, I don't know if you know this, but this just makes it a greater honor for me. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson is going to be the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's keynote gala speaker on Saturday night. Right. So, Michael, I am so proud to call you friend, and I'm more honored that you will bring the message before 10,000 people on Saturday at our gala. Now, back to my script. I also want to thank our panelists for helping us keep it real. And they're going to be introduced as we go along the panel by each panel because they understand keeping it real. But we want you also to know that we have been posting their bios. And let me just tell you, they are some incredible experts and leaders in their fields and in their company. So when we talk about Mary Kay, Keisha Powell, thank you. Shonda Robinson, when we talk about GM Financial, thank you. Pamela Everhart with Fidelity Investment, who has also been with us from the very beginning. Thank you, Pamela. Ray Odom with Northern Trust Chicago, who has been with us from the very, very beginning. And the queen of keeping it real, no other than Susan L. Taylor, for joining us again. Of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsors. So I do want to take the opportunity to ask them to stand. For our support from Mary Kay, we have representatives from Mary Kay, because I saw Jennifer also in the room, there in the back. Thank you. General Motors. Thank you. Key Bank. I saw Stevie in the room. The Ohio State University. And L Brands. We could not do this without their support. They have also helped us be able to live stream today's program. And we will ask everyone to take one of our swag bags that are filled with great books, So take it, because it's not just a lot of little stuff that you leave in the trunk of your car or in your hotel room. They are great books that will help inspire you and have you to be able to take greater action when you leave this forum. And there will also be a lunch. So we have grown each year. So let's again give our sponsors a great round of applause. And lastly, a great deal of teamwork goes into making this possible. And no person can stand here as a member of Congress and take the credit. We must always thank our team and our staff. So I would like to recognize my team, my chief of staff and legal counsel. Where's Kimberly? She's probably outside still working. Kimberly Ross. Where's Dominic? He's in the back. Stand up, Dominic, please. Who is my director of communications. Carissa Smith, baby, 6 weeks on the job, press secretary. Scott Farron. Scott staffs me on financial services, and he is also of legal counsel. And Juan Negron, who is my executive assistant and scheduler. Let's give them all a round of applause. Now let's turn to the business. I want to set the stage. The Civil Rights Act of 1965 paved the way for even greater equality in our country, so we would have the right to pursue the American dream, regardless of our color. But we still have a long way to go. Keeping it real, did you know that over the past 30 years in the American racial wealth gap has only gotten bigger, according to the Pew Research Center. Currently, white households, their wealth is 13 times more than an African American household. That's $141,900 to $11,000. Even more alarming, the median wealth of black families, again, according to the Prosperity Now, has dropped by a staggering 75% in the past 3 decades. It is so wide that it will now take 228 years for a black family to amass the average amount of wealth of a white family. We aren't talking about the extremely wealthy. We're talking about the average non-African American family. Can you imagine 228 years? For most working families, the most powerful wealth-building tools are home ownership and retirement saving. Home ownership and retirement savings. So you're going to hear a lot about retirement and how you prepare and plan for it. And that's part of leaving a legacy. Unfortunately, African Americans are less likely to own a home than their white counterparts. 69% to 43%. Have far less saved up for retirement, 130,000 to 19,000. Keeping it real, something has to give. Something has to give. We have to do something to break this cycle. That is another reason why we are doing this workshop. If we don't say it and tell it and advise you and help you, then who else will? We've actually decided this year to shorten our panel so we can have more time for dialogue in answering the question. That's why in Congress, I have supported legislation to allow students to borrow money for college at a lower interest rate. And I'm working tirelessly to advance financial literacy for students, first-time home buyers, all to be able to understand if you don't know what you don't know. If you don't know what you don't know, it will get you in trouble. And it doesn't matter how you start out. It matters how you end up. And that's another reason that we're doing this today. We want to make sure that we cover all the topics, so I'm not going to go through all the rest of my introduction because I want to hear from you. But more importantly, let me end by saying thank you for being here today. And let me say to you, as you listen to the panelists today, it is about their stories, it's about their companies, it's about their jobs, because they figured out along the way how to get there, whether it's saving, whether it's going from the first job to the leadership job, whether it's becoming very successful in owning your own business, whether it's direct sales, whether it's saving the lives of others. And our group is very mixed. We have people who are at the retirement age, but we have people in the audience who are millennials, who are starting their career, who want to know, how do I work and take care of myself and maybe a family and save and plan to leave that great legacy? So let me just say, thank you for being here, and just in case you didn't know, I am Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and I approve this message. Thank you.
Let's give it up again for Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. She ain't even introduced herself. We got to tell you, I know y'all already know this. You know that she is serving on the powerful and exclusive Committee on Financial Services, right? Romance without finance is nonsense. And she's a member of two subcommittees, Housing and Insurance, Lord have mercy, still trying to repeal my man's signature legislation, and ain't got nothing to replace it with, right? Just trying to come up with something, just throw something against the wall, like a Dadaist artist. And then she's serving as a member of the Oversight and Investigations Committee. That might be really relevant in the near future. Oversight and Investigation. Her position on the Financial Services Committee, as a member of that, she continues to be a leader in increasing economic financial literacy. That means you got to know about your dough. Ensuring oversight and expanding affordable housing opportunities. And that's still something that's seriously significant to black folk. Housing. And if we have somebody in housing to help us out, that would be an incredible opportunity. She is a sought-after public speaker. She's a graduate of both Central State University and Wright State University, where she earned her Bachelor of Arts and Master's degree. I know she already introduced the Ohio State. I'm glad she didn't go to Ohio State. I mean, I'm from Detroit, University of Michigan, Ohio State. No disrespect up in here. But Bo Schembechler versus Woody Hayes, that was some epic stuff. She holds many, what's that? Bo went to Ohio State. He went to Ohio State, but he ended up, what she said, ain't where you start, where you end up. I don't know what you heard about me. So, it's still a good school. It's still a good school. She has many honorary doctorate degrees, Central State University and Ohio Dominican among them, a lifetime member of the, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, DST, throw the rock in the air, and the NAA, and the NAACP. She's on the National Board of the Lynx, and a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, to name a few. And finally, Ebony Magazine recognized her as one of the 150 most powerful African Americans in the United States. She's got the longest bio because she's the biggest person with the greatest star, and we acknowledge her, we love her, we celebrate her. Deeply intelligent, profoundly humane, exquisitely beautiful, and just flawlessly feminine, the Reverend Dr. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. Now, I'm going to very quickly introduce the folk here, and then they're going to pass on. Then I'm going to tell a few things about my own story and pass it along to the Queen. We're grateful to have Pamela Everhart back again. She's a remarkable woman, 22-year Fidelity Investments veteran with financial services expertise, and she really leaves a powerful impression upon all who hear her. Ms. Shonda Robinson serves as an advisor and partner to executive leadership and as a progressive voice on sustainable diversity and inclusion strategies. And I gotta say, like me, she attended Knoxville College. All right, back in the day, we having troubles right now, but just pray for us. Because you know the struggles of all these historically black colleges and universities. is the real one, but many of us started there. And black colleges still graduate more folk who are black people with degrees than anybody else. Just keep that in mind, all right? Miss Keita Powell is a pink Cadillac driving executive senior sales director with Mary Kay. Still see that Aretha Franklin video about that pink Cadillac. And Mr. Ray Odom serves as a national subject matter expert in wealth transfer and planning, and always comes here and stimulates us and rivets us each year. And finally, the Queen of Black America, as she is known, Susan Taylor. You know her story, best-selling author of 4 books. She's a lifelong activist. Many of you were reared on her insight in Essence magazine, right? In the Spirit, you were reading that every month like you was in church. I know it's you were in church, but Abanassi's articulations are now exempt. So she's a remarkable human being, a dozen honorary doctorates, a host of awards. You know she was the editor-in-chief and then ran as editorial director that great and iconic brand, beauty and a beauty editor even before then. She got that magazine up to 8 million readers. And today she's CEO of National Care's mentoring movement, which is recognized as a national leader in the recruitment, training, and engagement of black mentors. And we need that, right? You can't complain about your kids if you ain't willing to contribute to your kids, right? Can't bellyache about them. I was one of those kids, right? If we're going to keep it real and tell my story. Look, I started out in the hood in Detroit, West Side, the ghetto. I go to places now in Detroit and people say, I've never been, because I used to see it from a distance. I could never even get there because we were marooned on a tiny island of poverty, as Dr. King said, in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. So I saw how the other half lived, including bourgeois Negroes, right? I wasn't invited to them parties. I wasn't part of Jack and Jill. I love Jack and Jill. I'm going to speak to them in a minute. I've spoken to many Jack and Jills. I ain't cracking on Jack and Jills. Tried to get my kids in, got rejected. No bitterness, no resentment. How you like me now? So what was interesting, I'm joking, I never tried to get into Jack and Jill. I did listen to the song by Ray Parker, it was extraordinary. So I started in the hood in Detroit. My father worked as an automobile factory worker, master setup man. Then he got laid off. He had such pride he didn't want to go on welfare. He had 7 mouths to feed. So he hustled on the street. We picked up steel. We used to go down to the city and weigh it, and they give us a little money for it. You know, like people collect bottles and cans and so on. We did that. Then he started a Dyson's & Sons grass cutting and sodding. I've been working since I've been 8 years old, right? A real job, a real job. And then after school, we were working in a nursery, hauling peat moss and sod, painting houses. We were hustling. And then from there, I got a scholarship to a prestigious secondary school, got kicked out, trying to hook up with my girlfriend in Kalamazoo, messed me up. Could have used a couple rap songs back then, and then got sent back to the hood. And then I was 18 years old, got a woman who was 26 years old pregnant. This ain't that panel right there about hidden skills. So I'm just saying, we live streaming, let me leave that alone. So I could say we got together. I got her pregnant. Went to my pastor. He said, "Are you trying to get married?" I said, "Yes," because that's what you did. 18, I'm working in the automobile factory, got fired from my job 2 months before my son was born. His mother couldn't work because she was pregnant, so we prayed that the baby would not be deformed. For many days we did not eat, period, at all. And then got that women, infants, and children product. I was in that line, stood in line, get that government cheese and milk. From there, and you know what it is, was homeless for a while, lived in my car, didn't go to college till I was 21. So I know what it is to struggle economically. Now I make more in a speech sometimes my daddy made in a year, right? Got educated, and I never lost sight of what my education was for, not to just help me out, but to help others. All of us, right? Read the book Black Picket Fences, then I'm going to introduce Queen. Read Black Picket Fences by Mary Patillo, and that argument in her sociological treatise says that black middle-class people help a lot more people laterally and in their own community than white folk do. And the reason why the black middle class ain't got the same resources and assets, because we trying to hook up everybody else in our clan. That's just what we do. To whom much is given, much is required. So that's my story, but here are the remarkable stories of these incredible human beings we have here. So I introduce you next to a woman whose upward trajectory was incredible and who continues to be an icon for Black America, Susan L. Taylor.
My Lord. Thank you, Michael. The real queen, please come and just stand next to me for a moment, Joyce Beatty. Joyce Beatty, we love you, we honor you, we thank you for just being the real deal and keeping it real all the time. I just wanted to stand next to you.
Thank you.
Just for a moment.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, let's give it up for Michael Dyson. And Michael, you said something that made me feel that I should say it is about how you end up. Now, I know he grew up in Michigan, but I ended up at the Ohio State University. And I thank you, Ohio State, for sending me to Congress. I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty.
No, not yet, but if I put this down, will it disrupt things? If I close the top of the computer? It's okay? All righty. Michael Dyson, one of the most brilliant people in the world, and my beloved. We are deep and dear friends. And Mike, yes, we do, as African Americans and African Caribbeans, people of African ancestry, it's about family. And so we do our best to take care of family. And we take care of our faith institutions, especially Black women. We give deeply to our faith leaders. Sometimes we're raising $25,000 for a pastor's 25th anniversary. But we forget that the children around the corner from the church don't have books in their schools or computers, And another reason why it's going to take us centuries to catch up has to do with what we do with the resources we have. The gross national product of Black America is near $1 billion. Some folks say it's a little more than that. That's a lot of money. Trillion, what am I saying, billion? Near $1 trillion. We overconsume. We are unconscious consumers. We spend money with entities that don't support us. Ohio State University, you all are here. We need to support that university. We have to be conscious consumers. We have to see who's investing in us, in our children, in our community, and support them. And I'm not going to say this again and again, but show people who don't support us when they should be supporting us that we're not going to continue to support them. Punish them by withdrawing your money. And until we awaken to that, things aren't going to change. I just blessed every morning when you get up, fill your heart with gratitude. Fill your heart with gratitude. If you are here or listening out there, we're streaming live, so people out there are listening to us. We are among the most fortunate, the most privileged Black people on this planet. That's who we are. Yet we whine and complain about stuff that is inconsequential. When we think about the suffering right now in Mexico, the suffering throughout the Caribbean, including Puerto Rico. Every day we get up and we think about the deficits. Think about how phenomenal you are and that we are. It's a blessing to be born human, to be able to think, to create, to have ideas, roll up your sleeves and breathe life into them. The Congresswoman talked about the importance of what? Money in retirement and home ownership. If you don't own a home, take your lunch to work. That's what I did. In the beginnings of Essence, we weren't making any real money, none at all. And the bonuses that we got, when I got a $25,000 bonus, I was excited. I was the editor-in-chief of the magazine, and the magazine was succeeding wildly, and we had the Essence Music Festival, and certainly the Essence Awards, and eyewear, and hosiery, and a whole host of things. But when Time Inc., Time Warner bought Essence, I'm like, oh, white folk, boy, they compensate you a whole lot better than black folk do. You know, that bonus became, if I sold however many magazines, twice my salary. My yearly salary, it changed my life. And what I could have done was move out of my one-bedroom apartment, and like Michael, I made lovely money speaking across the country. More money in one day than my father paid for the first house, the only house he ever owned. And he died before paying it off. Heroin chased us out of Harlem, forced my father to shutter his store. Crack cocaine, when I bought a brownstone in Harlem, forced me not to live there. I couldn't move back to the neighborhood. I wanted to move back to the neighborhood. What am I getting to? It is possible for you to become a homeowner. You not only need to own one home, you need an income-producing property. So you have to think critically about what you do with your money. And if you're not making enough money as an entrepreneur or as an employee, just quiet time is the key to everything you need to know. In the silence, wisdom flows. When you wake up in the morning, just be still. Put a smile on your face, gratitude in your heart, because gratitude makes everything you have more than enough. You see, then you get still, and you ask the Holy Spirit. You do not want to end up, I had to take care of my mother. She worked all of her life in my father's store. We ended up taking my father. I think the most humiliating moment of his life was when he had to borrow money that he couldn't pay back from my brother, who was 13 years old and had a paper route. Come on. Because heroin shut his business down. And so where there's a will, that's what my mama taught me, there's a way. You don't own a house, you can bake cookies, you can repair cars, you can babysit, you're computer literate, think about your skills and get a gig on the side. Got to have it. Save your money. Most entrepreneurs, a lot of black entrepreneurs, end up at the end of the day with no money, end up poor. Why? Because they didn't have a savings plan for themselves, a retirement plan for themselves. Everything was reinvested into the business. And I can name women and men who were like high profile and phenomenal, some we did stories on, in essence, who today are living in abject poverty. Don't let that be your story. And you know what I love about life? No matter how off course you may wander, no matter how far away from what the Holy Spirit wants you to have, you're not created to be poor. You're created to what? To really help those who are struggling along the margins. And what we do, you know, we are really not paying attention to black poverty. 1 in 4 African American children is born into poverty. Poverty hurts. Beyond our view, poor children and their families are living homeless from shelter to shelter. I'm working in cities, we're in 58 cities across the country, the National Cares Mentoring Movement. In a moment, I'm going to show you a video of what we can do when we link arms and aims. We don't have to move. You don't have to even give your money. We're talking about your time, just your time, to speak life into our young people who think that we have forgotten about them. I was visiting the Alameda County Juvenile Detention Center, and I said to there were all young men in there, and I said, you know, I wanted to say to you all that I'm here because I care. One young brother just stood up and said, Ms. Taylor, all due respect, y'all don't care about us. Middle class black people do not care about poor black people. He said, if you all cared about poor black people, I wouldn't have gone to a school in a major city, Oakland, where there were bathrooms without stalls, no running water. So we would go into the bathroom, relieve ourselves, and not even be able to wash our hands before going into the lunchroom. This is what our children are contending with. Harlan High, south side of Chicago, we're working there. In 58 cities, but in 4 cities, we're building programs that transform the entire school and shift our young people's consciousness so that they know that they are more than they seem, so they know they're human and divine, so they know that their present does not have to be their future, because we, able, stable black people, have their back. That's what we're saying. We are here. And the contract is you keep your behind in that chair, and you listen and stop self-medicating before you come to school, because poverty hurts. You know, I went from being a middle-class housewife to a poor single mother overnight because old Billy was unfaithful and he was an abuser, and I'm Babsy's daughter. Nobody's gonna beat on me. I'm glad I didn't kill the brother, you know? No, I'm serious. Because when I visit women's prisons, the majority of women, except in Arkansas, on death row are black women who kill their abusers. And I'm not a woman to take a beating. But my point is that on the south side of Chicago, at Harlan High, when we entered that school, and Michael talking about what the Congresswoman said, so loving, so available, has been with me by my side since I launched this as Essence Cares, which is now the National Cares Mentoring Movement. Been to Harlan High. He was right there, speaking life into the students, the whole student body. But my point is that when we entered that school, there were, 1,000 students. Well, you know, the next year there were 700. Then it went up to 800, then down to 500, up to 600. Why? Because when you live in some shelters, you can only stay for 3 months. Then you have to move on. So you see our families just being disrupted and moving on, and the new young ones are coming on. So beyond our view, there's homelessness, there's hunger, there's abuse beyond the telling. They're in schools without supports, overwhelmed teachers, under-resourced schools. And what are we doing? Talking about it, shaking our heads about it, but doing nothing about it. We have to vote. If there's something that you must do, is you get everybody in your tribe, everybody on your block to those polls. The numbers are shameful. Black women, we're holding it down at the polls, but we need to get everybody to the polls. Let me show you this very short video. His name is Tiante Miller. Michael met him in Chicago, South Side. Drug dealer, gang leader, decided to come back to school. And as he said, you know, I brought all my boys back with me. And we just nurtured him. And I let him tell what the National Cares Mentoring Movement, and it's just not the National Cares Mentoring Movement, it's that you are needed. And I'm going to end with this. Any of you who is interested in really working with us in cities all across the country, please just come and see me after so that we can link arms and aims and do the most important work of our time. Get rid of the stress. We are stressed about stuff that doesn't even matter. Take the inconsequential stuff off your schedules, off your got-to-do list, and think about what's really important, your health, your wellness, getting up, exercising, you know, being kind to yourself, speaking kindly to your mates, leaving situations, getting rid of. Not everybody is healthy enough to have a front row seat in your life. If they're not, like, delete it and keep going. Listen to Tiante Miller.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiante Miller, and I'm so proud to return to New York and talk with you all about Mama Susan, National Cares Mentoring Movement, and the Rising Program. I'm in debt to them for the rest of my life. When I was here last year, I talked about how the Rising helped me move from the street life and fell into school to graduating and going on to college. But I want to share something more personal with you about this program because my story is a story of so many diamonds in the rough out there. Diamond Cares is helping polish. Before the Rising, the biggest dream I had for myself was to become a successful drug dealer. I was in gangs. I didn't know there was anything else I can do. And my story isn't unique. I'm standing here and I'm speaking for almost everybody I grew up with. Where I'm from in Chicago is tough. And my generation took a big hit. Many of my friends are incarcerated. Others are in gangs. Some are dead. Most of us come up not having any idea that a life without gangs and violence was even possible. But the work the Rising shows us otherwise. It shows us that life is possible. It showed me that I can make some other choices, that I didn't have to take penitentiary chance to become successful putting me in jail or in a casket. It helped me see that I'm a smart young man and could be a proud black man, and it helps in my community if I was given a chance. The Rising gave me a chance. It gave thousands of students in my city a chance. And in March, I'll graduate with my associate's degree, which is the first step towards me doing all I can to make the health and the strength of my community possible. Every day I wake up grateful for Pastor Moss of Trinity United Church of Christ, who I met through the Rising, and my mentor, Caprice Radcliffe, who is here with me today. Caprice, stand up. I wake up in gratitude for Mama Susan and everybody who works at National Cares. Like Martin Luther King, who met with gangbangers on the South Side, the people at Cares meet with us on our block. And they bring love and hope and they change lives. But most of all tonight, I came to say thank you. Your support saves lives. It saved my life. And together, if we choose to do what Mama Susan taught us, to never give up on the young people, we can save millions more. Thank you.
Keeping it real. And let me say thank you to Joyce Beatty, because Joyce Beatty is a donor. You contribute to CARES, and every time a check comes in from you, I'm like, you know, I don't live in Ohio, but we have 3 units in Ohio. So you're spreading your bounty widely, and I am grateful for that. And Michael Eric Dyson, every year, he hosts our gala. You know, have him again this year, the 29th of January, he'll be there. So keeping it real, now say a welcome to Ray Odom.
Keeping it real, the value of virtue in keeping it real. So, let me give you a quick story about my life. And this is, I got some embellishment, but you'll get the point. So the reality is there's a young brother wearing a pinstripe suit walking through his neighborhood. It's a black neighborhood, but it's in the suburbs. It's in a black neighborhood. Of course, in a black neighborhood, you know it was near the tracks. So I'm walking in the neighborhood to get to the train station, but I've got a pinstripe suit on, and I'm looking pretty good, and I'm seeing some of the old fellas, and they're seeing me walking, and I kind of go on my way to the Northern Trust, and I say, hey, Freddie, and they say, hey, man, yo, Ray, man, I don't know what you think you are in that pinstripe suit, man. We know what you are, man. You're just another Negro in debt, baby. Come on, man, be real. I said, well, you know what? That's all right, man, because you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fake it till I make it. And I'm glad you smiled about that, because some of you have seen it. But you know what the problem with that is? Let me be clear, precise, if you don't get anything else. If you fake it till you make it, when you make it, you know what you'll be? That's what I'm talking about. You will be fake. See my hand up? And you see the problem with being fake is you can't keep it real. Now, some people get this keeping it real thing all mixed up. And I want to tell my story and try to get through these things quickly. But basically what I want to tell you is basically 3 things. Number 1, I want to talk about what it means to really keep it real. Number 2, I want to ask 4 questions that if you answer, you will keep it real. And then I want to end by showing you how keeping it real actually will help get you money, build your wealth, and end disparity. That's what I'm going to do. So let's get to it. So the first thing you got to say, okay, what does it mean keeping it real? A little what I call stereo stupid. The stereo stupid keeping it real is this. They in the thing, Tyron and Leroy. Leroy says, hey, man, you know what? They called me in the office, man. They trying to pink slip me. You know, I had a couple of blunts in the warehouse, man. They talking about, policies and stuff. But, man, you know how they do this? Like my grandma said, last high, first fire. I'm just trying to keep it real. Well, that's stereotypical stupid. That's what they think. That's what you do. That's keeping it real. That ain't keeping it real. That's keeping it stupid. Next thing, person that says, okay, I'm going to do loud and proud. Loud and proud is, okay, that's fine. I see the glass ceiling up there. Old girl got above the glass ceiling. And she says, well, you know what? Reality is, you know what? She came in my office the other day talking about this was that and that was that. But you know what? She just don't like me. I'd rather be respected than liked. I'm going to keep it real. Truth is, what that sister's saying is so true. And another truth is black women have had to make the choice between being liked and being respected because black men like me didn't show up on time. That's a fact. That's keeping it real. All right, now, reality is now you say, okay, Ray, we got that. All right, fine. We got you confessing some stuff. But now what about this last one? See, keeping it real, virtuous real. And this is about this. There's never a wrong time to do right. There's never a bad time to do good. I can put that in the positive for you. There's never a bad time to do good. There's never a wrong time to start doing right. So what we figure out is this whole thing comes down to these basic 4 questions about good. What you should ask is basically 4 questions. Number 1, what is reality? We're talking about keeping it real. What's reality? Well, let's talk about that. And then once we get reality, who's living large in that reality? What's the good life in this reality, whatever it is? And then 3, who is it that's living the good life in the reality? Okay? And then the 4th question is the one you're asking, how do I get to be one of those people? Because if you get to be one of those people, by definition, you're going to end this money wealth disparity problem. So let me tell you the first thing. It's keeping it real. Someone say, well, reality is, this is the college graduation speech. Reality is, whatever you make it, follow your dreams, work hard. You can do everything you want to do. Reality is, that ain't reality. Second point. Some people say, well, reality is kind of what you make it, but you look at it, and they're not doing much. And the problem is especially college, I don't know about you. I'm just going to talk about keeping it real. When I went to college, and it was not where I graduated from college, at the Ohio State University, who absolutely beat Michigan down last year. But I'm sorry. But let's not go there. The reality is when I was in the undergrad, which I'll let them remain in, I wasn't learning the whole stuff. I spent most of my time doing stuff that I wouldn't be proud of. But the statute of limitations is running. But the reality is a lot of people are doing that in college and then coming out and thinking somehow by doing that for 4 years that it qualifies you for something. Hello, I'm keeping it real. So the reality is, what is reality? I'll tell you what reality is. Reality is what you run into if you keep doing stupid. All right? Reality is the part that's external to you that is a constraint on your internal desires. One more time. The constraint on your unlimited desires is the limitations of reality. So, for me, let me just say it straight. Reality is God and His kingdom. Okay? Because reality is, that's the only place where you can get your unlimited desires met, but you have some limitations. So quickly, now on the second one. So, who's living large in reality? Well, the first thing is living large means you can do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, however you want to do it. And that makes you happy. So in America right now, we got to run on happy. As Sister Susan Taylor said, the problem is people want to be happy. And so let me give you a quick formula. If you can't remember any formula I give you, remember this one. If your goal is to feel good without being good so you can do good, you will be addicted to something bad. One more time in case you didn't get it. If your goal is to feel good without being good in order to do good, you will be addicted to something bad. Thank you. The reality is, and you can pick your poison. So some of you saying, Ray, he's all off. They get these guys from Chicago that don't know that. No, listen to this. The heroin, the opioid addiction, come on. You know why they call it the opioid addiction? Because they can't call it the drug war anymore. Because it's not us. Okay, I'm just saying. So the reality is, so we got this opioid addiction. Now here's what's happened. The opioid addiction, by the way, unfortunately, in the great state of Ohio, this is a real deal. They've actually brought a suit against the drug company. But here's the problem. The problem is people wanted to feel good without being good to do good. And so they said, well, is there a shortcut? And you can get heroin cheaper than some painkillers. And you feel good. You can do, and so they actually, my mom, I don't have time. In a short time, I have to tell you how good my mom is. But she had a little pain in her thing. She started taking aspirin. She started taking arthritis. Next thing we knew, she was in the hospital 2 weeks this year. Yes, she was addicted to an opioid. and what it does. And you know what? So someone say, oh, well, yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit about me that normally you wouldn't want to say about you. But you know what happened to me? 13 years old, I bought into a little thing called the Playboy lie. So I started looking at this stuff. Yeah. I'm looking at this stuff. And all of a sudden, you know what I'm addicted to? Yeah. I'm addicted to pornography. I don't even want to talk about what that is. I don't want to talk about how bad that is. And you know what the reality of that is? Women want to know what's going wrong with how men think. Hello, the Playboy generation has given birth to, hello, what's going on now? And you can't get there by saying, well, we'd like you to do good. No, you got to start with the reality of where you are and get rid of that. And by the way, I started there and I got rid of that because the truth is I decided I had to go to the third point. What is it that good people do? What did a good person do? You know what's interesting? I was listening to Susan, and all I could think of when Susan was talking about, Lord Jesus, help me to sign up for this as soon as I get out of here. You know, I was like, but here's the thing. What can really? My God doesn't say that. All right. The reality is, what does a good person do every time they get a chance? Good. They do good. You don't have to worry about what they do. Become a virtuous person. Become someone who is truly good on the inside. See, I don't aim anymore for doing good because that's how you get hypocritical. When you aim for doing stuff, then people come up and they pat you on the back and they go, oh, that's so good, that's so good. And I go, good, I can just keep all those problems, those addictions, all that phony stuff that may be unreal, all that bad attitude. I can keep that. No one will know. And I can get to have $400 or $500 million. And maybe I'll be on TV and they'll talk about, I didn't go there. But the reality is, you have in our community, in order for assets to stop from getting dissipated, you have to be good. When you're good, you see, when you get assets, you don't dissipate it. So you say, Ray, you got to sit down. So I know. See, phony folks, they're chasing low-skilled jobs with low demand, and you know what they're doing? They're not working on character. You know what happens? They have an unending frustration. How about somebody who decides to be good, do good? You know what happens? They aim to build character in every aspect of their life. And what happens when you build character? Trust me, what happens when you build character? People chase you down. Money chases you down. That's the truth. Thank you. The reality is, there's a man in my company, 128-year-old company. He is now in the senior management, the first black person ever to be a part of management. I can say his name is Shundron Thomas. Well, that would make him, black. Shundron Thomas. Look it up. The reality is, unapologetically, and you know what the reality is? The reality is he is good. And they're doing lotteries so people can have lunch with him to raise United Way money. Because you know what? Virtue attracts money, people, and everything you want that's right. And you're not a consumer. The reality is good people do it. So now what you're saying is, Ray, that was all good. But tell me, I know you're a Jesus guy, but I need to follow somebody who's just a virtuous person. Because one of the things you have to do in order to be good, you have to aim at goodness. The reality is, if you're looking for virtue, you're looking for good, you've already started. Because I have someone who can be someone you can follow, someone who's virtuous right next to me, Congressman Joyce Beatty.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Before we keep it real with the next speaker, it is indeed my honor to share with you that we have a special guest in the audience, no other than my colleague, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who is the chair of this year's Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Robin.
I really just came in to support my favorite member of Congress. If you're from Ohio, from the Congresswoman's district, you are very, very, very lucky. If you're from Ohio, you're very, very, very lucky. But thanks for coming out. Thanks for supporting. Hope you're enjoying the conference. We put a lot of work into it. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you. My keynote speaker. Thank you to all the panelists. And I just want to thank the Congresswoman again for always putting on a fantastic full workshop.
Thank you. Thank you. We also have Congressman Dwight Evans in the audience tonight. Dwight, please stand up, from Pennsylvania, my colleague. Thank you so much for being here, Congressman. And now we're going to keep it real. Come on up here. Another incredible. She's here with us for the first time. And Keisha representing Mary Kay.
A great morning. This is indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here for you. I'm grateful to stand in for my mentor, Gloria Mayfield Banks, who's been on this panel numerous times, and number one in Mary Kay. To our Mary Kay corporate staff who have partnered with this great Congresswoman to educate us, inform us, and keeping it real, and any Mary Kay entrepreneurs in the house. All right. And also, I'm a member of Sigma Gamma Rho for those who dare to be different. And my brother is in the house, and so I'm so grateful for that, Chris Powell Jr. So I always ask God to allow me to decrease so that he can increase. And in my few minutes with you today, that he will allow me to say something that can inspire you, impact you, and along with this distinguished panel, help us to transform collectively. And so one of the things that I've been praying about is in this discussion of wealth, money, and disparity, how can we shift that? And talking with my brothers and my sister, we came about the conversation that one of the things that makes us different is that we were blessed to be a third-generation entrepreneur on both sides of our family, blessed to be second-generation college graduates, but one generation from living in the projects. And one of the things that my father started talking to us that I find is different in our discussions from our counterparts is that he started talking to us about the law of supply and demand, about entrepreneurship. And so I'm grateful that our circumstances don't have to determine our destiny, and that we can choose to pivot and shift today to impact the navigation and elevation of our next generation. And it's because of that discussion that he gave me some blow pops at 12 years old for a nickel and said, sell them for a quarter. He gave me a taste earlier on. When I look at the people in my field and my business that are successful, it's because someone planted the seed with them about entrepreneurship. And that tasted so good to me that then I got some candy bars for 50 cents and sold them for $1. And today told me I can no longer sell in school. Get excited. But that planet, I saw him fail forward. He had an office product store. And I remember him in the garage when Reaganomics came in. And I remember I'm just 12, 13, 14, I don't know the exact age. And my mom had signed up with Mary Kay as her side hustle because the business was taking care of itself, but we need something else in between. And I remember when Reaganomics came in, and I'm a young girl, and I'm thinking back. And I remember the women that were working for GE, and they started talking about the first beginning of right-sizing, downsizing, but they were in Mary Kay way back then as their side hustle. And my mom was able to empower the other women in our community who had businesses, but their businesses went down. But they could use a vehicle like Mary Kay in the interim, short term, to pivot themselves and to shift. Not only to make 50%, but as an opportunity to economically empower other women to take up the slack for their household as well. And so Mary Kay would become her full string, my mom, and now she's retired national sales director for Mary Kay as well. But in the whole watching, I remember my dad in the garage, and he was pivoting. He was starting another business. And I know that he probably didn't feel good seeing his daughter understand what's going on. But he taught me the greatest lesson, that you got to take a risk. And no matter how you fall in your life, if you can look up, you can get up, and you can go one more round. It's what you think about and having another stream of income. When you're thinking about another stream of income, you want to think about something that's recession and depression proof, something that's consumable, something that's meeting a need. And we know that 4 things have been consumable and recession and depression proof: cigarettes, alcohol, cosmetics, and entertainment. 3 out of 4 can take you out. But no matter what's going on, we all want to look good, feel good, and smell good. And that is why the first American female millionaire was Madam C.J. Walker. She understood that value. Something else you want to think about is, while you're currently working your current job, are you having a CEO mentality? See, the very short time that I did work a job, I was working that job as an opportunity and a training ground to run my own business. Growing up with 2 entrepreneur parents, I knew that I was not cut out to survive corporate America. I salute all of you that you are, but also using what you're learning as your training ground. So when you go to work, are you partnering? Are you networking? Are you building trust and relationships? Are you using that as an opportunity to excel at your highest level so that you can cultivate your passions and your dreams and maybe start something else on your side? See, Beyonce said another word for a diva is a female hustler. And I say diva is a divinely inspired, victorious achiever. Do you have a mentor? And who are you mentoring? Who are you taking with you? You know, those that are in corporate America, we already know that for the current generation and our millennials that having a 401k and a job and Social Security is coming to an end. So we're looking to you who have made it, as this incredible staff and panel, is to be able to teach how to take it to another level, how to have an entrepreneurial mindset, how to take initiative in your workplace. I'm so excited when I look out and see so many of our young kids who are even in high school and junior high, even my niece, having a business, thinking about what can they sell because they know that they need something more. So in this process, you want to become a student of your business, whether you are working in a business or you choose a side hustle like Mary Kay to cultivate those dreams. I love in discovering what I have loved to do. Discover what it is that you love. I think Susan talked about it, is if you have, you know, what is it that you get at? Hair, fixing something, doing something, cars. What is it that you love that can be your side hustle? I love the fact that I've discovered in this opportunity that I love to help women have successful home-based businesses, whether it's to fund a dream, whether it's to fund their retirement, whether it's to have increased resources so that they don't forfeit what you have prepared in your finances to send children to college debt-free. I love the fact that women have had an opportunity. One of my directors, she had an opportunity starting Mary Kay Young to set up her dental practice, and now to come back and fund a dream so no more of our children would die of a tooth abscess, Dr. Belinda Carter-Taylor, and do dentistry on wheels. I have another young woman who is successful in consulting in entrepreneurship and engineering while she works her corporate job, but she's using Mary Kay as a vehicle to expose other young women to STEM and science and technology, and using her money to take them to see different educational resources. So how can you use that extra stream of income to bless others? And yes, we're going to make mistakes on this journey. I've made mistakes in people skills, in an unhealthy marriage. I'm a single mom of a 7-year-old, and I'm grateful that I know that I can get up and go one more round. So if you find yourself in that valley position, know that you can turn your pains into your purpose and use it as a privilege to economically empower other people. What is it that you really want? In order to pivot and shift, how can you turn your valley experience into a shift and increase your vibration? Start, as Susan said, from being grateful in celebration of where you've come from and where you're going through visualization and meditation. Seek God daily for direction and divine connection, that He will take you a step closer to your promise and attract you to what it is you want, and know that you are enough. I'm grateful that I met Susan when I was in college. The amazing Susan Taylor, I got to spend time with her, and she planted a seed with me. At the end of our conversation, she said, "I will see you again one day." And every time I read her article, I would say, "I'm going to see you again one day." And when Attorney Kim Ross called me and told me who was on the panel, and she said, "Susan Taylor," I started to cry, because every day I wondered when I would see you again. So I'm grateful. And in closing, this is the last thing I can say, is that it starts with a discussion of what we tell our children. And so I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I wanted to be careful about shifting her mind compared to what my thoughts were about money. And yes, I do tell her sometimes we have to say no so that we can say yes to other things. But every day on the way to school, she says, "I'm smart, beautiful, and confident. I'm bold, brilliant, gifted, and talented," because I didn't want anybody to put any labels on her of being shy. Shy is not cute, and she comes from a long line of women of strength. She says, "I have something to offer this world that no one else does. I am the head and not the tail. I'm a lender and not a borrower. I'm a magnet for wealth." And she thinks she is already wealthy, and people do walk up to her and give her money. But I've added, in light of this new discussion, that I manage it and multiply it well. See, she doesn't even know what that means, but I'm embedding it in her subconscious right now. I'm healthy, whole, and healed, and Jesus' favor and protection will follow me all the days of my life. And for this, I'm grateful. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you. Keeping it real. Sometimes you have to say no to say yes. Keeping it real, next representing General Motors Financial, Shonda Robinson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I first want to give honor where honor is due. So I want to thank Congresswoman Joyce Beatty for inviting me. I had the pleasure of meeting her earlier this year. Some of my colleagues and I came to Capitol Hill to talk about some of the initiatives that we are launching at GM Financial. And I tell you, when I met this woman, I was like, she is a firecracker. Like, she was so excited that her assistant couldn't keep up with her that day. And I just went back so inspired and was truly, truly honored to receive this invitation. So I want to thank you personally for inviting me and allowing me to be part of the esteemed panel this morning. But I want to talk about my journey with GM Financial. I know we hear a lot about entrepreneurship. For those of you that may smile at me, I don't have my glasses on. I'm going through that transition. Father, help me. Yeah, so I wear contacts and I just can't see close up. So anyway, if you smile, I'll smile back. But you hear a lot about entrepreneurship and what people want to do. They want to be self-sufficient and independent. But there are opportunities out there in corporate America that I tell you are for some of us. So for those of you that still may be on the journey of finding your path and what it is exactly that you're supposed to be doing, don't turn your back on corporate America. There are some great, great opportunities. I want to give you just some highlights of who we are. We are GM Financial. We're the global captive lender for General Motors, financing approximately 90% of GM's global sales. With more than 10,000 employees worldwide, this is just the financing side of GM. We provide a broad spectrum of financing solutions, lead generation support, and manufacturer insights to over 14,000 dealers. The company's position as General Motors' captive finance company enables both organizations to fully optimize customer experience, increasing customer loyalty and retention levels, and ultimately GM sales. That's who we are. I was brought on to GM Financial a little over 2 years ago to start up their diversity and inclusion strategy. Now, at the time, I had over 20 years of learning and development, so training, executive leadership development, that type of thing. But the only experience I had with D&I was I'm a Black woman, a proud African-American woman. And at the time, I talked to an old boss. So I'm gonna leave you with 5 nuggets, and I'm gonna kind of move my way into those. At the time, I had a boss that I worked for at another organization. Actually, he wasn't my direct boss at that company. But I sensed one day that he was leaving the company, and I really, really liked his leadership style. And we had a meeting that morning, and something prompted me to say, Chris, if you're leaving, take me with you. And at the time, he said, as a matter of fact, I interviewed with the company last week, and the conversation began. And he left in January of 2015, and we met in March of 2015, kept the door open, kept the lines of communication going, and he introduced this opportunity to me. So my first piece of advice to you is be ready before you have to get ready. When the door opens and the opportunity comes, it's not time to get ready. You got to be ready already. So we started having that dialogue, having that conversation about what the position entailed, what it looks like, and really giving me the autonomy to come in and build a strategy just from really personal experience of who I am and some of the connections that I would make along the way. GM has long understood the value of diversity of thought. General Motors is the only company that has a female CEO at the realm, and we're pretty proud of that. She's doing a phenomenal job in her role. Women currently represent 45% of the GM board of directors. They are making a difference. 45%, you don't see that. That's not the norm that you see, but they are truly, truly making a difference. Women and minorities represent 40% of GM's corporate offices. This is the General Motors side. If you look at the GM Financial side of the business, our company is 57% women. 57% women, 54% professionals of color. Powerful. You don't see that anywhere. The opportunity that we have is to move those women and those professionals of color into leadership positions. And that's what I'm there to do. We talk about legacy. A couple of the panelists have mentioned a legacy. And I know that I may not be here forever, but I want my legacy to be that those that come behind me can actually see an opportunity for themselves. I want to pave the way for other women and professionals of color to have the same opportunity that I had. My second point is to exude confidence even though you may be struggling with it. So partner with a mentor, somebody that is in a role that you want to be in, somebody that's doing what you want to do. Connect with them. I think a lot of women, in particular African American women, we struggle with going up to another sister saying, how did you make it? How did you get where you are? To just really have that conversation. Don't be afraid to share your story with somebody, because I promise you something that you did or something that you learned along the way will help somebody else along the way. So you partner with a great mentor, and I want to say this also, mentors don't always have to look like you. Because my boss does not look like me. He is total opposite. He's a white man, and he's a short white man. But I love him. So your mentor doesn't have to look like you, nor do you always have to mentor people that look like you. So the important part is make the connection. It's important for us to make those connections and build our network that way. Number 3, education is key. Educate yourselves. Get your face off of Facebook and into a real book. Let's read. Pick up a book. When was the last time we went to the library to just check out a book? We've got to do more of that. Educate ourselves. I have 2 daughters. One, I didn't realize this till later. I have a 22-year-old who's a senior at Berkeley in Boston. My gift to her is to put her through college so that she doesn't have the student loan debt that I had when I graduated. That's my gift to her. I am a first-generation college graduate in my family, the only college graduate in my immediate family, and I'm proud of that. And I want to pass that legacy on to my children. So my daughter, I said, look, we're going to make a deal. You go to college, you come out doing what it is you are passionate about doing, I got your back. I'll pay for your college education. But you come out talking crazy, I want all my money back. And I mean that. Anybody know anything about Berkeley and Boston? It ain't cheap. So education, become an expert on what it is you're passionate about. Everybody can't be passionate about social media, okay? Everybody can't earn money on social media. Let's keep it real, right? Let's keep it real. Everybody cannot get rich off of social media. So let's get our faces off of social media and into a real book and educate ourselves. Number 4, if you go up, you have a responsibility to send the elevator back down. Bottom line, reach back and help somebody because somebody helped you, right? Right? Your success does not dim my light, my shine. We can do it better together, right? So you send the elevator back down and help somebody else along the way. And number 5, make sure your effort matches your expectations. You see so many people want the corner office, they want to earn the 6 figures, they want the big bonuses that Miss Susan was talking about, and they give really good bonuses. But you don't want to put the effort in. So you want to call in sick 2 days out of the week and, take a 10-day vacation and kick it with your girlfriends. No, there's work to be done. And you have to work your way up to those extended vacations and things like that. You got to establish yourself and make a footprint where you are so that people know you are the go-to person. Think about this. Our life comes in seasons. So you have a season when you're on a job or when whatever it is you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur, whatever it is, there's a season of where you got to put your head down and grind, right? And then you'll have that season where you can develop other people along the way. You can reach back and mentor people, but you got to understand the season that you're in, and you can't operate out of your season. So 5 things. Be ready before you have to get ready. Exude confidence, even though you may be struggling with it. Educate yourselves. If you go up, send the elevator back down. And last but not least, make sure your effort matches your expectations. Let's keep it real, okay? I want to introduce to you Miss Pam.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Pamela Everhart from a small town in Texas, but I'm a daughter of a former school teacher and a janitor, a proud janitor. And while I was growing up, I worked at a bank during the day in new accounts, and that's where I learned a little bit about investing and financial concepts. And at night, I cleaned the bank.
Come on.
I then went on to the University of Texas. I graduated with an accounting degree. I became a CPA. I went to Harvard Law School. Now I'm at Fidelity Investments for 23 years, and I'm here to keep it real. All right. I'd like to thank the Congresswoman for her commitment to reducing the wealth disparities in our community. As long as I've known her, she has been focused on that and is committed to doing whatever she can to reduce that gap. I'm here today to talk to millennials. There are a lot of you in the audience, a lot of you 18 to 35-year-olds, and you are the future. You're the future of our communities. You will exceed the number of baby boomers by the year 2020. So it's important that you understand what needs to be done to focus on financial concepts. For those of you who just completed college, I'd say start now in terms of saving. You can't wait. It's hard, very hard to catch up. My company, Fidelity Investments, has 27 million customers. We're the #1 provider of 401k plans, the #1 providers of IRAs, and we understand how important it is for people to start early. So in focusing on the millennials, we did a study last year of 59,000 millennials, and we studied their behavior, what impacted their savings, how they spent their money, and how they invested. So I want to share with you a few things that we learned. 39% of millennials worry about their financial future every week. 60% said that they have delayed or will delay a major life event because they don't have enough money. So that means if they're in college, they may drop out. If they haven't gone to college, they may delay it entirely. They may not buy a home. They may not save for their kids' education, and they may not even start a family because they don't have the financial resources. That shouldn't happen in America. We should have all the skills necessary to live life. Over 50% of millennials have less than $1,000 in savings. So what do you do if there's an emergency? What if your car breaks down? What if you're sick for a couple of weeks from work? If you have less than $1,000. So what you need to do is have an emergency fund. I'd say 3 to 6 months of salary is a good way to start. But that's just saving. That's step one. What you have to do is learn to invest, not just save. So don't have the money in just a regular savings account or checking account. Think about a brokerage account or some type of investment account so your money can make money for you. 47% of millennials get help from their parents. That's just the reality of today. 1 in 5 live with their parents. And what are their parents doing? They're helping them with their utilities. They're helping them with their phone bills. How many of you are on the family plan? I mean, I am with my son, right? Clothing, entertainment, insurance. If you're not 26, Obamacare helps. They're on my son is on my insurance. 61% are thinking about saving for retirement, but they're only putting about 1% increase a year. I'd say that it's going to take a lot more than that. To retire comfortably, you need about 45% from your personal savings. Social Security is not going to do it for millennials. I'm not even sure if it's going to be there. Hopefully with help with folks like Congresswoman Beatty, we'll have sufficient Social Security, but you have to take responsibility for yourself. So I would recommend trying to save at least 15% of your annual salary into a retirement account. So what are ways that you can start to save successfully? Just start having that financial conversation and get help. A lot of millennials admit they've never had that financial conversation with their parents. They don't talk about how much they're spending on clothes. They're not telling them what's on their credit cards. They're not talking about how much to save. You need to get educated and financially literate. There are a lot of apps out there to help you do that, and a lot of advice and advisors that can help you. And manage that debt. College debt is astronomical. For 2016 graduates, the average college debt is $37,000. And for graduates of color, after 4 years out of college, that debt has doubled for a number of reasons. So we need to get a handle on that. Reduce that credit card debt. Try to figure out which credit cards to pay first. Think about consolidating some student loans. These are just some practical things that you need to do. And as I mentioned, start saving and then investing. I'll just tell you a quick story. My son is now 18. At age 11, with some monies that we acquired from family and friends and Christmas, both him and my daughter, we set up a brokerage account for them. We had managed to save $2,500, and he had worked, so $2,500 for him, $2,500 for my daughter. And I asked my son to think about what he would like to invest in. And I said, think about what you like. What products are you buying? You need to own what you're buying. So he said, because he had an iPhone, he picks Apple 7 years ago, $2,500. His Apple account today, I just checked it on my phone, $19,000. He started early. My daughter, with her $2,500 7 years ago, and she's 15 now, so what was she, 8? Back then, she loved McDonald's. Girl loved some Mickey D's. So her little $2,500 she put in McDonald's. Her account now is $16,000. So they've both done extremely well. So the deal is not just saving in a savings account, and we could do that, but they invested, and they were young enough that you could take a risk. And I'm not saying to you that you should do individual securities. I was just trying to prove to them that it can be done, and that you should think about the market, and you should watch it go up and down, up and down, and up and down. It was interesting when my son put $2,500 in, and when it reached $3,000, Mommy, let's sell, let's sell, let's sell. I made $500. You wanted me to see how the market, I'm like, let's just stay the course and continue, and now it's $19,000. So I would say to you, as a community, educate the millennials. If you have kids, talk to them about saving and investing, and then talk to your local elected officials, your congresswomen, congressmen, and think about policies that could help millennials save. And a couple of things would be student debt. How do we bring that student debt down? Matching opportunities. What if your employer not only put money in the 401k, but gave you money to pay off your student debt? Fidelity does that for its new employees coming on. We allocate $10,000 to pay off student debt, and a lot of other employers are looking at that. And what about intergenerational savings accounts on a tax advantage basis, where your parents or your grandparents could match the money that you put into your account. So if I put $2,500 into my son's account on a tax advantage basis, then his grandparents, his aunts and uncles could match that on a tax advantage basis. That's just some of the things we need to start thinking about as a community, thinking about policies that could change our situation. Tax advantage policies. Right now, they're talking about tax reform. Think about tax reform for us, things that could change the way we live and the way our families accumulate wealth. So what I want to do is now show you a video that we've seen before. This is Marion Barnett. Marion Barnett is keeping it real. She started early, saving with pennies, and ultimately was able to meet her lifelong dream. So if we could show the video.
Teresa Stanger Barnett. I was born July 17, 1921, the ninth of 11 children. Every Sunday, my mother would clean out every drawer to find 5 cents. I never had a nickel other than that. The only time I thought I was poor was one time I unwrapped my sandwich out of my yesterday's paper, and the kids around me said, "Marion eats lard." Then when I got out of high school and business college, I joined the service on January 13, 1943. A couple of months later, I married the man of my dreams, Fred Barnett, in San Francisco in Chinatown. When Freddie and I got married, we decided never to live beyond our income, his income. Mine I put in the bank. When we went to buy a car one time, Freddie said, "Let's go." I said, "I don't want a new car." I said, "I don't want to spend the money." He said, "Let's go." So we went down to see Jimmy at this car place, and we looked at it, and he liked it, and I liked it. And he said, "Okay, Jim, we'll take it." Jimmy said, "Well, how are you going to pay for it?" And I said, "Give me the bottom line." And he did, and I reached in my pocketbook and got out my checkbook and wrote him a check. Freddie said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm paying for the car." He said, "I didn't know we had that much money in the bank." And I said, "Well, if you had asked me, I'd told you." But you have to learn how to take care of your money. Just now, I've got my jardiniere by the door. I bet I've got $500 and change in that. My mother would have been proud of me. I've saved for 2 years to sky jump. Jumping out of the airplane was something I wanted to do. And Freddie wouldn't go with me. I said, "Come on, Freddie, let's go do it." He said, "I don't want to." And I said, "Coward." And my kids wouldn't do it. My daughter said she did it in Cleveland, but I have a big doubt about that. And then when Tiffany called, says, "Grandma, I'm going to be 30 next year. Would you jump out of an airplane with me?" And I said, "Sure. Let's go now." When I signed in, they all marveled. "How old are you?" I said, 90. "Oh my gosh, I wouldn't do it for the world." I said, "I might be stupid, but I can fall out of an airplane." And the most apprehension I had was sitting on the plane, waiting to get altitude. But once we got there and he said, "We're gonna go out at 3. I said, "You better push." He did. 3 and off we went. it isn't scary just floating through the clouds. No, we're in the clouds doing it. And he talked all the way through it. Now look down, you'll see the church. And look down, you'll see where you live. And look down, blah, blah, blah. It's an experience. It really is. You can just sit and do nothing. But I don't. If I sit and do nothing, I'm bored. I'd rather save my money and jump out of an airplane again. That's more fun.
Thank you. We're going to have time to open up some questions and answers, and you can direct them or our panel to an individual panelist. But we will also take just a moment. Okay, and we have microphones, and I see you're lining up, and then we're going to cut you off after we get a few folks so we don't have people standing there. So we'll take about 5 people at each microphone, and then we're going to ask you not to go beyond that because we have to be out of this room, unfortunately, at 12 o'clock. Did you enjoy this, Keeping It Real?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to all our panelists. I just want to say thank you for the panelists for all your remarks. And I'm so glad someone sent the elevator back down for me. And one point I want to make, one of the panelists mentioned Facebook. And I know most of us are on Facebook and have a Facebook account. Raise your hands. Just about everybody in the room is on Facebook. Now, let me just say this to you. How many people took a risk and made an investment in Facebook and bought their stock when it came out? Okay, see, everybody's hand should have gone up because you were getting that Facebook account and spending hours on Facebook. And in 2012, when it went public at $20 a share. Pam, I'm glad you told that story. Because my mother, who at that time was almost getting ready to turn 90, and she said, I don't know a lot, but I know your father always said, when you're able, take a risk and make an investment. And she said, everybody's talking about this thing called Facebook. And she said, I want you to buy some stock for us with Facebook. And so I thought, if my almost 90-year-old mother was that wise, I should probably double what my mother was doing. So my mother gave me her money for her stock, and I bought it. And then I got there with the broker, and I said, no, let's make it 3 times what my mother is saying. And I'm just saying today is worth $172 a share. And it was a good investment. So let's take heed to what the panelists have said, prepare, make investments, and save. Even if it's only a little bit. I don't want you to leave here today and say, I can't make the money they made, or I'm in a government job, or I'm teaching, thank you, or I'm doing social services and taking care. Because when I started out just like the least person in here. Regular family, nothing special, first generation college. But my father told me to do 3 things. That first paycheck, which was $6 for me babysitting. I brought 6 $1 bills in. My father took 2 of them and put them in his pocket. He took the $2 and he gave it back to me. And then he took $2 and put it in a cigar box. And I was waiting for him to give me my $4 back so I could have $6. And I went crying to my mother. And she said, he just taught you a lesson. He taught you that you should always take 1/3 of your money and make an investment. That was what he put in the cigar box. The $2 that he put in his pocket was the bank. And the $2 he gave me back was the thank you for doing what I was supposed to do, work hard. And I can tell you now, 6 decades plus later, I still take 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And the year before my father died, he did that all through my life to my first job when I was not living in his house. And before my father died, he came and he had a whole bunch of cigar boxes. And we were sitting at the table for dinner, and he wasn't well. And he said, I better give you this now. Now keep in mind, my father only died 7 years ago. And he opened up the box, and in that box was $30,000. That was the investment, and that was the savings of my money. So I'm just saying, keeping it real, prepare, invest. It doesn't matter how much. And I'm leaving that legacy for my grandchildren, and you should plan a legacy for someone too. Thank you, and that's my story. First question, and we're going to ask you, don't thank the panel again. Don't say anything but what your question is, okay? Because we want to get through everybody.
I'm not okay. Merry Christmas, everybody. To me, this is our Christmas, where black people get dressed and talk about us. My question, I'm Femi Akibi, I'm a Nigerian. I have a son that asked me this question. He said, Dad, you are an hypocrite. I say, why? He said, you consult for 138 countries. You talk black, but you act white. So I took a step back 7 years ago, start to address it. My question is that when I go out the field, we need big investment for dams, airports. Black people are not organized for that kind of game yet. So when I get to that, I got to go find the white people and then bring back to the African continent. My question then is this. When do we change the framework that has not worked for us for 50 years in Africa and here? 30% of the global population, 1% of the economics. My real question then, how do we formulate between us, the African continent and the mineral resource there, and the technical know-how here? That's my question.
Susan's going to take that question, and thank you.
Part of it.
Excellent.
You know, trust is what is missing. We have to trust one another, and sometimes we trust people outside of our race more than we trust one another. You know, we're sitting here across the street from the Marriott Marquis. Do you know that it's black-owned? Do you know that some brothers got together and pooled their resources and built that hotel? And they're building another one across the street. Is Steve Hightower in the room from Hightower Petroleum? Is Steve here?
He's not, and he's one of our sponsors.
Phenomenal man, looking for the kinds of partnerships and opportunities that you're talking about, and the Congresswoman can introduce you to him. So I'm saying there are African Americans out here who would be willing to partner with you. You just need to know them. And I think between those of us on the panel, especially Congresswoman Beatty, you can meet them. We are here, we are ready, we are able, and I want to say, you know, based on that, that's how you start your businesses. You have to have an entrepreneurial effort, no matter what you're doing in somebody else's sphere. You have to have your own. Pool your resources with a few people and do what the brothers did across the street. Start anything, house cleaning service, babysitting services. Pool your resources and become an entrepreneur, as we heard before.
And let me just add to that. Susan Taylor earlier said, go and vote. It's important to have elected officials who are responsible for allocating dollars. So federal dollars can go back into the community in federal government. Thanks to Maxine Waters, I'm one of the co-chairs for a program called OMWE that was written into that legislation that Michael Eric Dyson talked about, the Dodd-Frank legislation, that we now have an Office of Minority and Women Inclusion. We don't do enough for folks who look like us to go back and insist that minority contractors get a major part of that, because we've been happy to settle for 3% or 5%, and we shouldn't do that. That's not equality. And I am going to brag on The Ohio State University, because they built a $1 billion hospital, and the president at that time came to me as the only black person on his senior staff. Now, I'm not bragging about that, because you should never only be one. But this man who did not look like me, almost like your story with General Motors, asked me, how can we do better and do the right thing? And I said, take away the 3 and the 5%. And he did that, and we got 28% that went to black contractors. Wow. So you have to hold us accountable. You have to put us in the room. And that's why we have to diversify and make sure that there's always one of us at the table and you send the elevator back down.
Congresswoman, can I just say one other thing? In addition to voting, you have to support financially your congressman and your senators, because that gets them back to do the good job.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lisa Williams, and I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. And what my question is, I actually debate with a lot of my friends, professional friends that are doctors, that are attorneys, about home ownership. A lot of them talk about, you mentioned earlier that home ownership and retirement are two vehicles in order to accumulate wealth. Well, a lot of them say, well, it's better to rent because then I don't have all the expenses and maintenance of a home and everything like that. And I can live where I want to, and then if I decide to move, I can move, and I don't have all those hindrance of having home ownership. And because I know about taxes and things like that, I try to explain to them. So my question to you is, can you give me an advice to kind of help them understand, because they're professionals, they're knowledgeable, help them understand about financial education or financial knowledge of putting money into a home and things like that?
I would just say there are some great online tools, some great apps that can walk you through what the options are, rent versus buy. And I think if they would start there, and they can play out a lot of different scenarios. So I think that would be the first start. Financial literacy, as the Congressman mentioned, is key. I remember when I started out as a lawyer, I didn't know as much about financial concepts as I should, because I was just focusing on the law and not on the financial piece. But then I got educated and got smart about it. And so I think that's one suggestion that you can offer to your friends.
Another thing you can tell them, and I'm going to make up this number. So let's say they're paying $2,000 a month for rent. Tell them to do the math and to add up $24,000 a year. Then tell them to multiply that by 5 years if they stayed in that apartment, and tell them they could have taken that $100,000 that they threw away because you don't get any return on it, and made a down payment, and they can still live where they want to live, because wherever there's an apartment, there's a condo or a house in that same neighborhood. Just tell them to do the math. Yep. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, question for the panel. On financial concept, what types of financial concept should one like me learn? Something like the Rule 72, and it could be Rule 72 or other types of financial concepts, or both.
Well, I think if you talk about financial concepts, I put that in the same spirit as financial literacy. So I think it starts with managing your own finance, knowing what your credit score is. Make sure you know what your credit score is. Then when you know what your credit score is, let me give you an example. Most people go out and buy a car. And so a financial concept that you should not do, you should not walk into the automotive dealership and say, I can pay $595 a month. Give me a good deal, because you're going to get one for $590 a month, when maybe it could have been $405 or $310. So you have to do the work in advance. You should know what interest rates are. When you go to the bank to get a credit card, you should ask them for a non-interest or no interest credit card. And if that bank doesn't have it, close it and go to the bank down the street that does. Now, it's usually only for a 2-year period. So at the end of the 2 years, close the account and go get another one. Don't be lazy with your money. I've been doing it for the last 30 years. I have had probably 5 different Visa or MasterCards, because when the program ends for no interest, I change. They have more money than me, and it's just filling out a card and transfer, and 7 days later you get a new credit card with no interest. Yeah. So that would be my advice to you on those 2 things. Thank you. Next person.
Hi. I want to be respectful of my elders who said don't thank everyone, even though I think we all are very grateful, so I will not thank you all. But
you'll give us your question.
But my question is similar to the brother's question here. I'm the spokesperson for Let's Buy Black 365, and
thank you.
We are primarily millennials and younger people, but we do have an elders council, and one of the things that we have put as a pillar of something that we want to do is the concept of helping Black-owned businesses employ more Black people.
Okay.
And helping to get the businesses to capacity and profitability so that they can employ more people who look like us. One of the challenges, similar to the brother's question.
We have two more people. You have to give us your question.
Okay. So the question was also along the lines of resources, especially when it comes to making sure that we are, I guess, financing our community with money that comes from companies that support the community, as opposed to, there's so many companies that want to give back to community.
Let me paraphrase so I understand. Are you asking us what are some of the resources or advice that we can give you to help Black-owned businesses merge with other businesses?
So the question is, how do we get more, how do we make a pathway so that more young people can get engaged, so that there is less unemployment and all these different kinds of things, especially given some of the barriers with financial resources? Because, for example, we will not take money from corporations that don't support our community.
We heard mentoring earlier, that get a mentor. We heard go to the library, do your research so it meets your efforts meet your expectations. But I would go and sit with someone who owns a business that's similar to what you want to do. And across the country, we have minority business enterprises. We have SBAs that help you with getting your loans. We have universities that have African American faculty on board. So I would make a plan, and I would figure out what that plan is, and then I would research a company in your area, because when you do your market plan, you're going to have to know what other businesses are like your businesses anyway to do your marketing plan. You're going to have to know it when you go into the bank. I would come and sit in some of the congressional committees, the small business. You will hear firsthand all the legislation that's available. I would go to the Black Chambers of Commerce. I'd go to the regular chambers of commerce. And somebody said it best, the people don't always have to look like you. We have to be able to trust and educate other folks. Just yesterday, I sat with Congressman Cedric Richmond, who is young. He's one of the millennials. He is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, with the president of J.P. Morgan Chase Bank and the president of Johnson & Johnson. And that was the first thing we asked them, because of the lack of Fortune 500 African Americans on their boards. But we also talked directly to them about the people they contract with. And they said education and awareness and us working together. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Martavius Jones. I serve on the Memphis City Council, but professionally, I've been a financial advisor for 23 years. Tax reform is going to be a very big subject coming up pretty soon in this administration. But Congresswoman, would you please, how can we educate or educate our public to know that when we talk about income, wealth, money disparity, when income goes up, so does your tax liability. There's no wealth tax. When we talk about qualified dividends and capital gains, which is where corporate America executives get their money from, how do we educate the populace to better let them know about the disparities? The maximum capital gains tax is 20%. Christy Walton received $400 million in dividends, yet she paid a 20% tax rate. If I'm an NFL player making $1 million, I pay 40% to Uncle Sam. How do we get the message out there to better educate it? But it comes down to corporation. It comes down to mutual funds, stocks, investing. So in tax reform, in those discussions, can we have some element of educating the populace, the mainstream, about these disparities? Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, do you want to take the partner out of that?
Yeah, I just say that he's spot on. I mean, this whole tax reform conversation is real. It's happening right now. And I think that you're right, the disparities between being taxed on the ordinary income rates and capital gains rates is a big disparity, and people need to be more educated around what the different options are, and maybe look at more investing versus what I talked about, savings. So there's a big difference between people having income and people having wealth, and that's the gap.
And let me go back again to the housing thing and to the young sister who asked the question of educating her friends on buying a home. When you talk about capital gains, property is a huge investment, and another reason that we need to get more of our younger brothers and sisters into home ownership or to a condominium and owning that second piece of property. You know, my grandmother didn't have a college degree, but what she did was she took my grandfather's pension and she bought 5 houses on the street. And then she put her children, my mother and her brothers and sisters, in each one of those houses. So then each one of them, when they got of age, they bought 5 more houses in the street, in the neighborhood. And so we took over a neighborhood where we owned 30 houses. When I graduated from college, one of the first things I did with the little bit of money that I had saved, I went out and I bought property. And then I bought buildings. And I was just a regular kid, first generation, didn't really know what I was doing. But someone at a podium, when I was in the audience, told me to make an investment and to buy property. And I did that. Last question.
Praise God. Antoine Thompson, National Executive Director for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers.
And this was not planned. This was not staged.
We thank you for your leadership. There's a 30% gap in home ownership in America, 70+% for white Americans, 42% for black Americans. We have an initiative program right now to increase black home ownership by 2 million people. Some people say it's aspirational, we say it's necessary. Next year is the 50th anniversary of fair housing in the United States, and so we are fighting for access to credit. We know you have a bill, and I think that the caucus, a number of members have bills. If you all can share some of those bills with us that we need to advocate for, we will do that, because we have to open up that credit box so that more people can have access to credit. I'd like to hear from the panel, what are some of the other advocacy things that you think that we can do at the local and state level to get more folks to invest in black home ownership? Because if you don't have a home, it's hard to get a loan for a business. Thank you. God bless you.
Let me just say thank you for that. And I think it also goes back to, you mentioned it, that many members of Congress, including myself, we have congressional legislation that deals with either home ownership or, for example, I think it's difficult oftentimes for young folks or folks who are in my age group to go buy a home if they've not been educated on it. It seems to be a complicated process, and it is. So one of the things that we've done is we have a bill that allows you, if you go and take a course, financial literacy course, you get a reduction of 0.025 on your insurance. So it's 2 ways. It helps you with that 30-year FHA mortgage, and you're educated about how to take care of it and how to do your financing. One of the things you need to make sure is, in Congress, they're trying to do away with the 30-year FHA mortgage lending. That hurts people like us in this room. Most of the folks who bought their first home on this panel, in this audience, probably bought it with a 30-year mortgage on an FHA loan. So it's getting educated and aware, being educated, having the awareness to know what to ask, and to be able to write to your congressperson or a congressperson and to ask them for that help.
May I add something?
Yes, absolutely.
Congresswoman Beatty, I want to say we have to bring it to the people. And we bring those systems and know-how to the people through our faith institutions. Many, many of our churches and temples and mosques really do have programs that help people become homeowners. We have to break it down to that level. We should make sure that in our community gathering places, wherever the community is gathering, and they're in every community, that home ownership becomes a part of what we're teaching. Our children should begin to hear about that. I come from one of those Caribbean families that never said go to college. Buy a home and start a business. And that's exactly what I did, you know, and then I went to college long after becoming the editor-in-chief of the magazine. So we have to inculcate that, instill it in our young people very, very young. And I know of people who've gotten together and bought homes together, friends. You buy it, maybe it's not the home you're going to live in right away, but it becomes an income-producing property. And I do believe, as Congresswoman, Beatty said, that it's not just one home, it's several homes. Sacrifice, take the lunch to work. You don't have to live high on the mark. Buy fake stuff, good quality, but spend your money in places really that do what? That create equity, that grow in equity and value.
You've been a great audience for money, wealth, and disparities, and keeping it real.